Hello, folks, and welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I am Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, we thank you so much for listening to us. Zach and I talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. And if that's something that you would want to listen to on the regular, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed. When you get there, rate, review, but most importantly, subscribe. If you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is one right now at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And that means we're live on YouTube, on the A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube channel. So go over there and subscribe there. Hit that notification bell. If you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified when we go live. And you can come hang out with us. You can come be a part of the show. Comment. We love everybody coming and hanging out, commenting. We love going back and forth. So seriously, be a part of the show with us and subscribe on YouTube at Charlie_Burris, at Zach TNT, at A to Z Sports, Facebook.com/A to Z Sports Nashville, and A to Z Sports.com for all the stuff that Zach writes on the internet. Now, Zach, admittedly, we are not exactly A+ at hitting the 7 p.m. on Monday time for the live show every single week. We have a lot of just converging schedules and different things that are happening. But this week, very ironically, we are right on time. We are doing it right at 7 p.m. on a Monday. And you had a bit of a big week last week. You had an event that I would say can throw a schedule through a complete loop. And yet we are here talking about it. You had a baby, and congratulations, man, on that. That's why you missed last week. I didn't say it because I didn't know if you were cool with that, but I think you were. Congrats on the kid, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. It certainly she came up 2 weeks too early, so was planning to do the show that Monday night, and it's hospital rooms, the lighting's just not right, the acoustics, so we had to get a pinch hitter in there for the week, but we're back this week. It's all good.
We are back. Will Bowling filled in last week. It was a ton of fun. He did a really great job. Appreciate it there from him, from 104.5 The Zone in Nashville. But we are back to business here. And, man, it was a fun week of Tennessee sports. I guess it ended yesterday on Sunday with a loss by the Lady Vols to South Carolina. And let's just say this. There's a conversation to be had there. We're not probably not going to have it tonight. But one for the offseason there, depending on, if they miss the tournament, what happens there. But besides that, Tennessee basketball beat Auburn. It's awesome. What an electric game that was. Then you go to Tuscaloosa and you win in Tuscaloosa. And you win in Tuscaloosa without Dalton Knecht having a huge game. Hell of a week for Tennessee sports. We're going to talk about all of it. And then also, finally, football is coming back a little bit more into focus. Spring game coming up. We're going to discuss all of that here on the Big Orange Podcast. But of course, y'all know the deal. Got to tell you about the great folks at Farm Bureau Health Plans. First, Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some have stayed the same. Farm Bureau has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Huge thank you to them. Longtime sponsor, Farm Bureau Health Plans. Tennessee goes, well, let's start actually with this Auburn game, because there's so much with the Alabama game too. And Auburn was in the middle of last week. You beat Bruce, and let's start here. Knecht goes for 39 points in play. The way he played down the stretch was a dude taking over in a way that I, in my modern memory, 32 years on this planet, I don't remember seeing a dude in orange uniform ever having a stretch like that. Unbelievable. Did you Again, crazy week for you, Zach. Did you get to see this game?
Oh yeah, I watched both games and really like just overall from both games, I think, and I know we'll get into this a little bit, but like this is exactly what we've been talking about since November that needed to happen. Like, okay, you had those losses to like Kansas and UNC back at the beginning of the season. A couple of losses, Mississippi State games that just, just weren't good, flat out. And it's like we weren't blowing those games off. It's like, hey, it's not like it's what you got to win those games because you want to be a 1 seed, but it's what you do moving into the tournament. What kind of momentum are you riding into March? And like last week, it was everything that Tennessee needs to be to make a Final Four run, starting with that Auburn game, because we thought that was a loss. We were kind of texting and stuff, and everybody's like, "Yeah, this is gonna be a loss, right?" And I tweeted kind of jokingly at about the 12-ish, 11-minute mark, I think, in the second half. I was like, "It's going to need to be Dalton Connect time, or this is not."
Or
Kind of a
lost
wishful,
time.
not like I was expecting. Not what I was not expecting Connect to do what he did, even though we've seen him, kind of go into that mode a few times. But in that type of game, where it's one you really got to have with the SEC regular season on the line, you got to win that game for the Alabama game to mean even more. Again, it's just like wishful thinking. It's like when you're watching a baseball game and you're hoping that with 2-1, your guy hits a 3-run walk-off home run, and typically they strike out and you lose by 2. But Connect to come up and deliver that way, I mean, you have to have that in March to go anywhere. There's going to be a game in the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament, however far they get, where Dalton Connect's going to have to score almost 40 points for them to win. So the fact that he did that against Auburn in a moment where he really felt like he was the only person that could save the team. I think he scored like 11 straight points or something at one point, 20 of 23 or something. I can't remember the exact numbers. Just
25 points in the final 12 minutes, and Auburn in that stretch only scored 21.
Yeah,
is what
just
I remember.
Ridiculous. The confidence that he plays with. Like when he needs to score, he knows what to do. He can knock down those mid-range jump shots, those kind of fadeaway shots. I mean, that's why he's got a chance to really be a factor in the NBA. I don't know what his ceiling is, but he can go play. Like he can go play some minutes in the NBA. Is he going to be an all-star? Like maybe. I don't know. I think he's got the talent to do it. If he plays like that, there's not many college basketball players we've seen take over like that. But just knowing that you have that guy, that he continues to do that, and then you go to the Alabama game and he doesn't do it, and you still win. Like you still find a way. It's not like, oh, if Dalton Connect doesn't go off, we're screwed. I mean, that's not the takeaway from this week at all. That to me is what's exciting. Like both of those games felt like losses at various points. The Alabama game getting late. It's like, okay, it's gonna have to be Dalton Connect time again. And he made some shots, but they just weren't falling quite the same as they usually do for him. I mean, that's basketball. We've watched basketball for decades now. We know that sometimes that's just how it goes. And other guys stepped up. I mean, that was it just says a lot about where this team is right now, I think.
Absolutely. This week in these two games, it perfectly encapsulates how powerful this team is. And I told Will Bowling this on the show last week. Maybe it's the fact that my baseball team won a World Series this year, and it was the first World Series that they've ever won. I mean, in their entire franchise history, 50 plus years, the Texas Rangers had never won. They're my boys. They finally won one. Maybe that has me believing, has me turning into a sheep. I don't know. But I watch this basketball team, and they have all the bases covered to be the team that goes there. I mean, not only is this probably the most realistic chance that Rick has had to get a 1 seed in the tournament. I think you're the best team in the SEC. You should win the SEC basketball tournament. Basketball's a weird game. You might not, but still, I think that's unequivocally true. And you just look, Adu when he's playing well, and you bring in Awaka when he's playing well, and then you bring in Zakai Ziegler being, the best point guard in the SEC, and then you bring in Josiah Jordan-James just making good veteran plays. Same with Vescovi, just good veteran play. And then you add in Connect, the most elite scorer in college basketball right now. I mean, it's as the great Burt Bertelkamp says, it's just money. It's money. It's the team. That's the whole formula. I mean, the only thing that could feasibly make it better is if you did have a takeover big man also, an Armando Bacot or something like that. Like, sure. But Adu is great. Owaka's been coming into his own more, sort of learning how to use his body better, use his size more effectively, and not just get 2 fouls and leave a game. Although that happened against Alabama. That happened against Alabama, and you still won, which is so insane. Josiah Jordan-James freaking played the 5 for like half that game, and that he ended up with 13 rebounds or something in that game, 14.
That was the one thing, though, that from that game, one, Tennessee probably could have won that game by double digits, 15 points easily if there's no foul trouble issues there, because that lineup that was on the floor for long stretches was such a small lineup. And if that's the one thing that worries me when we get into March, if Adu gets into foul trouble, Awaka gets into foul trouble, what happens then? How do you counter some of these big men that you're going to run into in the tournament? Like, it worked out against Alabama, and it worked out when Dalton Connect wasn't on fire and didn't rescue them. But if that same scenario happens against a team with a more dominant big man, what happens then? Like, how do you? I don't know. That's the stressful part, I think, when you go into March Madness, is you've got to keep Adu out of foul trouble. Like, you cannot have those types of stretches where he's sitting on the bench for 8-9 minutes. I mean, it's a long stretch there that he was gone, and that's kind of when Alabama was closing the gap, taking the lead, especially there at the end of the first half. They went on that run where it looked like, okay, Tennessee's going to be able to stretch this out a little bit. No, suddenly Alabama's got the lead at halftime. What do you do about that? And how nervous are you if they get in that situation in the tournament?
To me, I look at that scenario and I say, I mean, that's Dalton Connect territory. It's where you just have to trust, like, you have that dude that he fills in that gap that you've missed for so long. He's that exact element that last year against FAU, you didn't have that guy down the stretch to make the big shots to win that game. You obviously had your opportunity to make an Elite Eight last year, and you didn't. And he's that piece. I mean, you effectively have the same exact team as last year, and just a year older, and with the most elite scorer in America. And so there is so much to talk about, but as I was saying, those two games, they just perfectly encapsulate. You have the power of Dalton Connect when you need him to take over a game, but you also have this set of dudes from front to back that it just is all sort of there. And when I think I said this to Will too, but when it all clicks together, you win by 40. When you take out Connect, you win by 10. And when you take out both, you lose to South Carolina at home. But still, how many times this season has that happened where it's just total flop over this is probably my biggest thing that makes this feel so different. In years past, in the last few years, it has felt like the bad team shows up more than the good, where you're just, you had a team last year that made the Sweet 16, beat Duke, did all those things, but it was painful watching that team sometimes. Like they were just dragging themselves to win sometimes. And this one, the good outweighs the bad more so. And it's just, this team has been a joy. I didn't say this publicly, but I was texting it at the time. Like, a couple of those basketball teams the last couple of years, I think I texted some friends of mine, like I hate watching this team. It's because it was brutal, where there was no joy in sometimes they were winning and I hated watching it. And that was just the nature of that. This team is, I don't want to say magic. That's probably a little bit strong, but they got all the pieces. And that just is what it is. Now, with all of that said, I mean, honestly, we're not done with the Alabama discussion, frankly, because Greg brings up a great point here. And this is, like I said, all this, there was so much that happened. Jemai Mashak, and as one of our very astute watchers kept saying last year, I forget who it was, but somebody in our comments kept saying Jemai Mashak is now Jemai Marchak.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
He was Jemai Marchak, boy, at
Dude,
Alabama. Some of the biggest plays in this entire game, just crazy
effort,
hustle
just like
plays.
straight effort, like
Oh,
Jawan Jennings type plays. Like those are the things that the NFL draft combine, all these athletic testing scores, you cannot test that type of stuff. Like that changes games. That's how you win those games. It's not who can run the fastest or make the most shots. It's who makes those effort plays, that gets those extra possessions, that gets those extra points. That's huge. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's just part of them being a complete team for the most part and having all these pieces outside of maybe another dominant big man type guy, which would really put them over the top. I think everybody agrees there. But otherwise, just everything they have, it's fun to watch. I mean, even like Santiago Vescovi, kind of the role that he's, when he first arrived at Tennessee, he was asked to be something that he's just not. And he did it. He did a good job of playing that role, and he had some big games. He's made some big shots. Like I'm not downing Vescovi at all, but he was just he was asked to be like a Dalton Connect. It felt like where we're going to rely on you, but that's just not who he's supposed to be. And now he's in more of this complementary role. It's just another tool that you have there to utilize. And we saw in the Alabama game, he's like another coach, on the floor too.
Elias says it here. He was drawing up plays on the sidelines. Literally. He got caught on camera drawing up a play in a huddle.
Like just good on him for every, it seems like he's been at Tennessee forever at this point. And what it's pre-COVID. Was it pre-COVID when he right around that time?
I think it was.
Kind of
forever.
Everything he's been through and his role is kind of shrunk now, but he's still just as invested as ever. I mean, it says a lot about him, I think, as a basketball player and just as a human being in general.
He's really embraced it, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's the same with Triple J. Like he came in as a 5-star and has embraced being a role player essentially. I mean, he never really felt like a guy who wanted to just be that star, but still he does it when he does it so effectively. And in this game, I mean, he hit one of the biggest shots down the stretch, got the ball in his hands at an absolutely crucial moment and drilled a 3. All of these dudes have it. Are they going to hit it in every single game? No, nobody does. Dalton Connect's not going to hit it in every single game, but in a lot of them they will. But another element in that Alabama game that makes me a little bit more, not even a little bit more of a believer, a lot more of a believer in this team than past Rick teams was just like you're doing things that you haven't done in the past, like winning in Tuscaloosa. I mean, I mentioned this actually on Twitter in weeks leading up to this. I was expecting to lose that game. I came in and I said, Rick just doesn't win in Tuscaloosa. I mean, what do you want me to say? He just hasn't, and he doesn't, and he wasn't doing it before Oates was there, and he's not doing it now. And sorry, and I said on Twitter, I was like, and this was when Tennessee was down like 8 in the second half, and I was just like, frick, this is just gonna be another one where at certain points it was in hand, and you let it slip away in Tuscaloosa. And I said, that's why I was really upset after the Mississippi State and South Carolina games, where that there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, it's just an early season game. It doesn't really matter." No, those are the ones that matter. So that when you have these key games down the stretch where it's extremely tough to win, and you're in these really tough arenas, you can drop those games, and it's not as crucial and as detrimental. And I tweeted that out, and obviously they made me look foolish, and thank goodness they did. I love it. I mean, I tweeted out, I retweeted myself, and I said, "Look at this idiot." I was just like, "Hey, make me look stupid." I don't care at all, because I want all of that stuff broken. Before Rick got here, I would have said the same thing about winning in Rupp. Winning in Rupp, we're not doing that. Who are you kidding? That doesn't happen for Tennessee. And then all of a sudden he's done it like 3-4 times and did it this season, scoring 103 points. And now this is just another one. You go and you win in Tuscaloosa. You win in Tuscaloosa without Dalton Connect having a huge game. I don't know. All it takes.
Felt like this team said it's go time. Like,
yeah,
we're going to go win a championship. And
exactly.
Shots have to fall. A lot has to go right, obviously. Like if they go to a Final Four, they don't win it. that's just how it goes in basketball sometimes. But otherwise,
Yep.
like, it feels like they're on a mission. Just watching them play, like they're not going to lose these games. So help them. Whatever they have to do, they're leaving it all out there, and that's that's all you can ask for, really.
Absolutely. I mean, Caleb says it here. The sad part is that there's only a guaranteed 4 more games with these guys. I saw them tweet out today that it was senior week, and I just went, oh, why? Because this team has been so special and so fun to watch and been so different fundamentally from, Rick has put some really good basketball teams on the court, but this one just has a different funk to it. They just really have something else. But even Joshua points out, there's also Gainey just jacking up shots at times. That was bad. But at the same time, I would push back on that and say, even that guy on this team, Gainey does go in there sometimes and take ill-advised shots, and sometimes he does it for whole stretches. One, I think he's gotten better over the course of the season to not just keep throwing it up there and, until one finally drops. And then he's gotten better at, the shots aren't falling. Let me concentrate more on other elements. And he's not completely detrimental to the team, even if the shots aren't falling, where I think in the early part of the season, he was just there. Was it the Mississippi State game? One of them where he shot Tennessee out of the game single-handedly. And I think he used it as a learning experience because he is also an older guy and obviously coach's son too. And so there's just a lot that makes me think this team is special.
I think Elias nailed it with his comment here. I think we've talked about this before. I feel like guys want the ball, and maybe I'm misreading the past, but it felt like we had some teams where folks didn't seem like they didn't seem to want it in the clutch, and it definitely felt that way at times last season.
Year.
I mean, was it like I think it was the Vanderbilt game where it felt like just nobody wanted to be the guy to go win that game.
It was
like
hot
a very
potato.
winnable game, and it's like you do it, and there's nobody wanted to. It's
absolutely
you can't win big games that way ever.
Yes, you gotta have, and I think it's Connect has given other guys a ton of confidence because I think even kind of in the middle of the season they had that point where it was sort of clear that they were just like throwing it to Connect, being like, "Oh, you do it." Then they had that come to Jesus meeting, and then I think it's become Connect can do it, and we have that backboard. And now maybe I can do it too. And it's given sort of the entire team some confidence. It's been sort of like having a great quarterback.
Was it the Auburn game or I can't, obviously for me this past week's been a bit of a blur, but I can't remember if it was the Auburn game or the Alabama game where Connect kind of swung the ball and it got to the corner because they doubled Connect and hit that big three in the corner. Do you remember that play specifically? It was kind of in I want to say it was the Auburn game. And
maybe.
That kind of showed kind of what you're talking about. Like they were going all out to stop Connect on that play, and he didn't force it. He was kind of out on the perimeter, and he found somebody else open. They were able to swing it to the corner, created a wide open shot because of the way they have to play Connect. But the fact that nobody, they were willing to make those plays, take those shots, and not just get the ball back to Connect or not just move out of his way. It really does feel like they've come together at the right time to play this style of basketball that you have to play in March to win, and not just rely on Connect, because we've seen like he gets plenty of extra attention, especially late in the game. I mean, everybody knows what's coming, and you got to kind of pick your poison there, and that means other guys have to step up.
Yeah, him drawing so much attention is massive, even when he's not scoring. Robbie says that was the Auburn game. But him just drawing so much attention is huge, and you still, like down the stretch in that Alabama game, he really didn't score much, but with about 2.5 minutes left, they put the ball in his hands, and he just ISO'd against a dude and put up a super tough shot and drilled it. And it was only 2 points out of that entire, clutch stretch, but it was enough to where Alabama goes, okay, they're going to try to feed him. They're going to try to go to him. And then suddenly you feed it to him, and they feel like they got to double team him because they know that he still has it. He's not just going ice cold tonight. And suddenly they got a double team, and Josiah Jordan-James is open, and Kai Ziegler's open or something like that. And it's all working together. And because all of these guys are older, more senior guys, they just really, it seems like they really get it. they get that melding, and they all seem to feel pretty unselfish. Even like Joshua says here, Dalton is definitely the alpha, but he understands how to find an open guy. It's that right there. He's probably the best scorer in America, and yet he can get double teamed and find that open dude. And all of it is just super, super valuable, even if you don't have that elite big man. I mean, I think if you had that elite big man, I'd be calling for national championship right now. And I'm almost doing it as is. I mean, I'm saying this is it. I think this is the team.
Somebody said it earlier. I can't remember who in the comments, but Connect, the one thing he does have to get better at shooting free throws, making free throw shots, because he gets to the line a lot. I mean, the way that he can drive to the basket, he can pretty much get to the line when he wants to. And I mean, that's how, I mean, you look at NBA superstars, that's how guy averaging 30 points a game, they're hitting 15 free throws. That's how they're scoring half of their points usually, at least. I mean, he could be even better if he could just get a little more consistent from the free throw line. Those are huge shots you got to make to win games too. I mean, trust me, we've seen Tennessee lose games because of missing free throws. That's the one part of his game that's a little lacking. That's kind of surprising as good of a shooter as he is.
Makes no sense. I genuinely
maybe he needs to be guarded to like hit
it,
like somebody jump out there on him in the free throw line, play some defense.
Maybe it's like he's got to be shooting a freaking 30-footer with a hand in his face, and then
there's nothing more like when it's a tight game and you have a guy that can hit a fadeaway, 17-foot jump shot. There's nothing more demoralizing because you've got them to settle. You've got them to settle for the shot that you want them to settle for, pretty much a contested jump shot, and he just drills it right in your face. I mean, what do you do?
And it's just like beautiful fundamental basketball. It goes against like the Steph Currying of basketball that's happened in the last few years. It's just like, oh, once you cross midcourt, chuck that ball up, and it's just, oh no, give it to him on the block, and he'll back you down. Well, not on the block, on the wing, and he'll back you down to the block, or he'll just shoot a fadeaway on you, or like I just love a good
by you. I mean, there's
drive by you. I just love a good mid-range jumper. I'll be honest.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's what gets you in the NBA.
It does 100%. Like especially when you got like if you got to do this like Adu size, if that guy can make a 15-foot shot, you're an NBA guy.
It's pretty much a requirement. Yeah.
Yes.
Even if you're 7 foot, you still have to, like Anthony Davis had to go through. He had to learn how to make jump shots. I mean, he had to thrive in the NBA. I mean, it's just the way basketball is now.
It definitely is. But it is all there. We will see. I mean, I think Chris is right here, and this is, I think, the formula to make a Final Four. Vescovy has to be on too. You just can't rely on Connect all the time. Consistent scoring from at least 3 guys. Yes, if you do that, it's a Final Four. If you can do that and add in Dalton, Connect, all playing right at the right time, it's a national championship with this team. I think. I mean, they play to that level at this moment.
Yeah, like my favorite thing about this team, obviously watching Dalton Connect go off is fun, but how many of these games, these big games that Tennessee's won, you see Zakai Ziegler hitting a couple of clutch threes just when Tennessee needs it the most, it feels like a lot of times. I mean, what is his legacy at Tennessee? He's not going to be an NBA guy probably because of his size, and then that's just how it goes. But what is his legacy at Tennessee as a point guard, in your opinion?
Well, I made the comparison last week with Will, actually, that 2013 Louisville team. I followed them really closely because my dad's from Central Kentucky. I mean, I've lived in Knoxville my entire life, been a Tennessee fan myself, but he's from Central Kentucky, was a Louisville fan. And I watched that 2013 championship really closely. They had Peyton Siva at point guard. He was super dynamic, but he was also a guy that you watched him and you were like, he's not going to make it in the NBA. He's not that type of dude. But he was the type of dude that was the engine of that team and did, he was everything for everybody and just filled that role perfectly. And Sakai feels super similar to me. I mean, that Louisville team was really awesome from top to bottom. This one is, I think this Tennessee team is too, but he's that type of guy that I mean, yeah, he might not make it in the NBA. You're not playing NBA basketball right now. You're playing college basketball. And that he seems to have the clutch gene where it's, like you said, big shots at the right time. And I think he'll go down as one of the great point guards to ever play basketball at Tennessee.
Just that and the fact he tore his ACL, like January, February?
The year anniversary was last week, I think. I saw multiple people
I mean, he came back this season like nothing ever happened. It just seemed like pretty much. I mean, he eased his way into things a bit, but just what a guy. What a player. He's one of those that won't have a jersey hanging in the rafters, won't be, mock drafts and all SEC first team type stuff probably, but where would you be without him?
Absolutely.
Where are you going to be next year without him?
Well, he'll still be there next year.
Does he have another year?
I think he does.
Okay.
I might be wrong about that. Let's actually take a look.
It's so hard to tell with the eligibility at this point, because we're still in some of the COVID stuff.
It's not loading. Come on, Tennessee's website. Hello, somebody. He's a junior. He's got another year.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he'll be back. He should be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Bryce has there. He's a junior. Man, I don't. That's really it on basketball. And I also want to say I hate this much, but about the Alabama game, just to finish the discussion on that, I'll say two different things. I got to give credit to Nate Oates because I think that Alabama team is not that great. I think in terms of pure roster, like the talent that's on that team, I think they've played over their skill level a good amount this season. I got to give Oates credit there as much as I think he's a scumbag, and he definitely is. I got to give him. Coach. He is. He is a good basketball coach, and I will also say, I hope he leaves Alabama for Louisville or Indiana this season. Please get out of the SEC because I hate you. But that on the whole with basketball team, to me, I titled this video, "Here's Why Tennessee Will Make a Final Four This Season." I am a believer. Like I said, maybe my baseball team winning their first World Series ever is making me feel like a sheep. I don't care. I'm a believer. I think we see it this season. I really, really do. So I'll say that. Anything else with basketball, Zach, for you?
Speaking of Nate Oates, it was fun listening to him go on this tangent about not storming the court at Alabama because first off, that makes no sense at all. You're Alabama. I mean, I've been at a UNC Duke game where UNC rushes the floor because they beat Duke. I mean, they beat Duke tons of times, obviously, and they've won national championships, unlike Alabama. They rush the floor, and he's trying to, big time whoever, we don't rush the floor at Alabama. We expect to win big games. And then you go out and lose the big game after your security is practicing their court storming.
They were prepared.
Yes. You just look like a buffoon even going down that road. Like, you don't know what the fans are going to do. You have no idea what they're going to do. And you cannot disparage your own fans for rushing the court. You're never going to look good for that.
If they had, they chucked up a bunch of what would have been heroic threes had they gone in at the end of that game. And if one of them had won them the game against Tennessee, 100% they would have rushed the court. Nate Oates, without a doubt. Alabama, what even big games has Alabama won in that building?
Who do you think you are? You're not.
you think you're
blue-blooded.
Duke? Yeah. Like, shut up. Like, they sucked until you showed up. They genuinely were a low level, a bit of a basement dweller. And until Nate Oates got there, that's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know. But again, please leave the SEC. We don't, I would be happy without you. Anywho, that's it. Let's go to a Final Four, Tennessee. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit of football. In the second half of the show, there's been new assistant coaches. A little bit more Eli Trinkowitz news. Get this freaking guy out of here. And we'll talk a little recruiting too, right after I tell you about Zen Sports. Zen Sports, of course, is the Tennessee sports betting app that we've been talking about all season long. And when you sign up for a Zen Sports account, you receive up to a $1,000 no danger first wager. That's right. When you place your first bet in Zen Sports, you can be reimbursed for that amount up to a $1,000 maximum if that bet loses. But there's even more good news. Zen Sports is rolling out its brand new VIP rewards program. New VIP rewards program will allow top-tier customers to earn more bonuses, comps, and perks. The VIP program is by invite only. So if you feel your Zen Sports play qualifies for VIP consideration, please check out the program at zensports.com/VIP. No other sportsbook will offer you a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer service and faster withdrawals like Zen Sports. So what are you waiting for? Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports. Betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. And we got a little fun thing this week, Zach, something that we're starting with Zen Sports. This week, we will have a handcrafted Zen bet for the Tennessee-South Carolina game, which we didn't even talk about the South Carolina game. Good Lord. Maybe we need to do that before we crack into football and end the show that way. But look out for that on Twitter at Charlie_Burris, at Zach TNT, at A to Z Sports. We'll have the handcrafted Zen bet a little later this week in partnership with Zen Sports. That's going to be a ton of fun. That's Zen Sports. They're awesome. Go check them out. All right. Well, let's actually quickly. Let's talk about that South Carolina game, because that South Carolina game's coming right up.
Do you
big.
think Tennessee volunteered 77 here? Do you think Tennessee needs to lose to South Carolina so they don't go on a big winning streak into the SEC and NCAA tournament? Do you subscribe to good losses like in college basketball? Like that's always been a thing for as long as I can remember. Like somebody lose a game in late February, early March, and like that's a good loss right before the tournament. It kind of centers you a little bit.
To me, I would be much more okay with beating South Carolina and losing to Kentucky. As crazy as that is, if you beat South Carolina, you win the SEC outright because you own the tiebreaker against Alabama now since you swept them. No, I don't want either of those things.
I feel like that's just how you rationalize a loss once it's happened. You never hope for it.
No, you're better than every team in the SEC. You should win out all the way through the SEC tournament championship. You should win the SEC regular season. I think you are a much better basketball team than South Carolina. South Carolina's surprisingly good. They're having a nice season. I think that they're another team's probably playing over their ability. Lamont Paris has done a good job coaching them. They were kind of set up to lose against Florida on Saturday. They were down like 10 in the second half and really gutsy, came back and ended up winning that game. But I think Tennessee is much better. You should win that game. I still don't know why you lost that game at home. That was the one from this season that was just a total connect, didn't show up. Nobody else did either. Total drudge to try to score. I kind of get the feeling Tennessee wins by like 15. I don't know. Maybe people will come back to me here and be like, look at this dummy here. What were you even thinking? Tennessee loses by 20. It just feels like it's a get right where they just kind of say like, we're not getting swept by South Carolina. We're not doing that. And they just go out and they correct whatever happened in that last game. That said, South Carolina is good. They've only lost 5 games all season. 4 of those were in the SEC, but they actually have a worse SEC record than Tennessee. But it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be super raucous and super crazy, and you know that their fans are going to come out. Obviously, they want to beat the number 4 team in America. But I'll say Tennessee wins. I think Tennessee wins out, and I think the SEC tournament always gets goofy. Will Tennessee win that? It's tough to win that, but I think Tennessee beats South Carolina, wins the SEC. I'll call my shot now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they win that. I think they win out too. I think they'll. I'm like you. I don't know what happens in the SEC tournament, but I think they win out. I think they beat South Carolina. I think they beat Kentucky. I think they're just the momentum's there. They're hot. if you lose in the SEC tournament, we've seen tons of teams lose their conference championships and win national championships. So it's not the end of the road. It's not panic city if they lose on Saturday or whatever, semifinal, whatever it is. Like, it doesn't matter. That doesn't affect what they can do in March. But yeah, we still want to see them win it. We want to see another SEC tournament championship banner, all those things.
I mean, it makes me think like the Kentucky team with Calipari that won the national title with Anthony Davis. They lost in the SEC tournament to
It happens
Vandy.
all the time.
They lost to Vandy.
Yeah.
And won a national championship 3 weeks later. So
there was some weird stat like UNC, I think there was like 3 of their championships in a row they lost in the ACC tournament, and 2 of them were to like Georgia, like a not good Georgia Tech team both times, like first 2 times. So
well, and you also get that theory of like, do you want to lose in your conference tournament to save up energy for the NCAA tournament, and then you come in a little more refreshed?
Which Tennessee does have the benefit, they'll be in the top 4 seeds obviously, and that's to play less games no matter what.
It's true. We'll see.
I don't know. I'm like, just win. No Al Davis thing. Just
exactly.
Win.
Just win, baby.
Yep.
Go out there and win your games. Now, just quickly, we saw today, before we get to this ridiculous Eli Drinkwitz nonsense that you found today, Zach, a really nice little tidbit from that dork. You had
he hears that. He hears that, by the way. He clarified or made clear that he hears Dorkwitz.
Does he? Hey, good. I'm glad to know that Eli's listening.
Yeah.
We do think you're a dork. You definitely are. But as far as the football team goes right now, it's been pretty quiet. Just in general, not a whole lot going on. But you have 2 new assistants, Darrell Sims and William Inge, who spoke today in a press conference. And I mean, it was pretty anodyne. It wasn't anything amazing. I will say I really liked what I heard from Inge. We also learned how to say his name. It's Inge, apparently. Yeah. And I especially liked, I mean, just in general, it was kind of rote, coach speak stuff for most of it. But he pointed out that Keenan Peely, of course, Inge is the linebackers coach, and he pointed out Keenan Peely is like older than me, like 35 years old or something. And that Peely this week, he said he was talking to his players like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? And then some guys were like, oh yeah, I went to the club. I went out on a date with my girl. And then he said that Keenan Peely had been doing home renovations with his wife. So awesome.
Embrace
I love
it.
That little tidbit.
That is what your future holds. All of you that are under 22 or 25.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it comes for us all. I've been doing so much of it in my current house. But was there anything else that stood out to you from the assistants speaking today?
Yeah, I thought instantly, like, this is the first time Heupel has hired from outside since he got hired at Tennessee and brought in a few coaches from outside. Everything else has been promoting from within because of this culture that he's so protective of, and not really protective of. It's just what he wants for his program, and it works. Like, the vibes are great all over Tennessee, especially Tennessee football. It's kind of interesting when we found out that he was going to hire from the outside. I thought it was going to be an interesting process just to see how he went through it, who he hired a couple of names that we weren't really familiar with, going into this search. It's not like Darrell Sims and William Inge were household names. And there were some big names out there that we thought, like the running back coach from TCU that had some Memphis connections. We thought that might be a potential option. It felt like he hired the 2 guys that fit his culture the best. Darrell Sims, I mean, he's out there talking about Jamal Lewis and Travis Henry and Travis Stevens and growing up watching Tennessee being, running back U. He even pointed out that he had a teammate that he went to high school with that played at Tennessee, is all SEC offensive lineman Eric Young, who spent a couple of years in the NFL, played there with I guess some of the Ramon Foster years, Gerard Mayo years there. So he's got this connection to Tennessee kind of through that. He had coached at Western before and had played in Neyland, and he told the media that he kind of had this feeling back then that he would end up there at Tennessee one day. He didn't know how, when, how that would all happen, but sure enough, That was in 2015. 9 years later, he's here. Seems really happy to be here. Like he's all in on being a Tennessee Vol. Like it's not just a job. I mean, obviously he's trying to climb the ladder, but for now, it's where his feet are, where he wants to be. So I think he'll fit into that culture perfect. And I think the same's true of William Inge. I mean, it's a guy that was going to Alabama, was following Kalen DeBoer there, somebody that he's worked with since 2019 at Indiana. Like they have a history together. And I don't know the ins and outs of their relationship, but it looks like he's destined for Tuscaloosa. And then this comes open. He's like, yeah, no, I kind of like what's going on there better. I kind of like that vibe. They're established. You don't know what's going to happen in Alabama with DeBoer. It's a completely new operation here. You got Nick Saban over there kind of meddling every other day, kind of telling them how to run the defense. Do you want that if you're William Inge? You've already got one boss, the defensive coordinator. You got Nick Saban on top of that. It's kind of like, I think I liked what's going on at Tennessee better. So again, a guy that wanted to be there at Tennessee that just kind of fits into the way that Tennessee approaches things. Like you could just tell from his demeanor that he's thoughtful. You know, he's demanding, but he's thoughtful. He's practical. It seems like he's not just going to be like a rah-rah yelling out there type of guy. Like he wants to build relationships. He wants to get to know players. He wants to continue to build that culture. So, you know, you got to trust Heupel with all these hires that he's made so far. It seems like these two are going to, you know, be two more really good hires for the program. I think they fit in quite well. And if you're Darrell Sims, by the way, running backs coach, your first week, you get to go watch Jalen Wright and tear up the combine, longest broad jump, insane vertical, 4.38 in the 40. And you're like, that guy, he had one more year of, I couldn't even stay one more year. I could have coached that guy one more year.
Yeah, that does have to be tough. Well, at the same time, if he's going to be a dog on the recruiting trail, Sims, I mean, that's a nice look. The more guys that you can get that look great, going towards an NFL level, you know, the better for your recruiting. But no, I agree completely. Heupel definitely does. He hires towards a type.
He has a type, no doubt.
He definitely does.
He's not going to hire Trooper Taylor. Like Trooper Taylor's not coming back to Tennessee under Josh Heupel. That's not his type.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome because you create a culture in an organization and you want to see what you want to see out of it when you're the head guy, and I completely respect that, and I think it's great, and they should be great too. Yeah, I didn't have a ton of other takeaways from it necessarily. You know, the spring game, I don't think we've even talked about it on here. There's only 10,000 seats that are going to be available for the spring game, but they're going to have it airing outside the stadium, and it's because of construction. And they'll have it airing outside of the stadium, and that, you know, it's going to be just sort of the fun, frivolous thing that it is every year. I don't know if we'll go back this year. We haven't talked A to Z, but we went last year. Maybe
thought
we'll be
about
one of the 10,000.
Maybe. I think that's probably mostly for recruiting, just to have recruits there at that kind of a little bit in the stadium.
And now on that note, the dead period ended on March 3rd. It went from the dead period to the quiet. It's the quiet period now. So quiet out there right now. You know what exactly that means. Your guess is as good as mine. What am I, a coach who recruits at the college level? But regardless, I think recruiting will be spinning back up here, and then you have the loud period or whatever, the contact period, I believe is the next. I think it starts April 4th, maybe. And so it's going to start ramping back up. Really not a whole lot going on there. Tennessee got in with a couple of recruits were there in their top 5, top 6, top 7, or whatever that they announced. There's been some of that, but on the whole, not a whole lot going on with Tennessee football. I will say this: not a whole lot going on with Tennessee football, except and we were going to talk about this last week, but you were having a child, Zach. But the Tennessee won the injunction in the NCAA court case, and then it was this was released to the media that the investigation into Tennessee is being paused. So as of right now, it's kind of, free. Tennessee is what would you say? I said free to move about the cabin, whatever you would say. They're They can take that seatbelt off. Here we go. The investigation is paused. And so I think that's actually awesome. Great timing.
Yeah. I think Tennessee probably had a pretty good feeling, knowing now, kind of knowing what we didn't know then. They had a good idea. I think this is how this was going to go. Adam Sparks from the Knoxville News Sentinel, I don't know if you saw the report earlier or last week. Like, Tennessee was lawyering up for this fight like over a year ago. They knew that this was eventually going to happen, so they had lawyers coming in to kind of work on this, to make sure everything was right with Nico and other NIL deals. And that's why I think Danny White was so confident when he sent that tweet out a couple of days after, a lot of the back and forth between the NCAA and Tennessee through the media was going on. Danny White was just like, okay, I'm just going to tweet about this and put it out. He did not text a buddy. He went straight to Twitter. He is officially one of us when it comes to that, and didn't take long. He's like, they did not find anything. They found not one single violation. And I think he was so confident sending that because he knew the work that had went on behind the scenes. So, one, good on Tennessee for standing up for your players, making sure that they weren't going to get screwed over, not being just a complete cluster of a situation like Florida has been down there with their NIL stuff and other programs too. Like Tennessee's had, they've had this stuff buttoned up, and just the foresight to be proactive instead of reactive to these issues that they knew. It's the exact opposite of the way the NCAA handled business when they were just reacting to every new change that would happen. I mean, Tennessee, Danny White, from the president on down, have been very proactive in all of this. I mean, they've been proactive in NIL stuff from the moment that it became legal to do. They've been kind of leading this march forward in some senses. So just it's no coincidence that Tennessee athletics are thriving now that the leadership is right. Like, that was ultimately the biggest. You can blame coaches, and there were some bad ones. There's no denying that, but it ultimately all starts at the top, and it was just such a disaster for so long at the top. And now that it's all aligned, I know that it's that corny thing that you hear coaches when they get hired. Josh Heupel said it when he got hired. The alignment is super important. This is why it's important, and it actually is good. They say that a lot of times, and it's not good. They just say it, but it's where it needs to be right now.
Absolutely. It's a masterclass. If you're a school administrator, you got to be looking at Danny White and saying, like, there's my goal. That's the guy I want to be. Because it's been impressive between him and Dondi. Oh, they have been putting on a clinic for how to handle that stuff. It's been beautiful. And Elias says the NCAA is standing on business of selectively leaking information. That's great. Well, let's finish with this. Speaking of standing on business, you somehow, Zach, I think like randomly on YouTube, you found this interview with Eli Drinkowitz of Missouri football. And he talked about on this podcast the standing on business comment to Josh Heupel. Obviously, he got caught on a hot mic or mic'd up saying, we stand on business, Josh. And then he ran away like a little child after beating Tennessee this year. He had a good football team. I'll give him that much credit. He did. But that was a real dork move, which is pretty on brand for him. And he explained it out, Zach. You wrote about it today. I told you this is a great find. A couple of friends of mine sent it to me, even. And what did he have to say for himself about that?
I think, first off, going into this whole standing on business thing, we're all, what is this? Like, what are you trying to get your point across here? So the fact that he kind of addressed it, I was happy that we kind of get to go inside his mind, because he is a strange guy. But it all came down to he told his defense the whole week that was like their mantra. We're standing on business, no matter the opponent, no matter the score, all the cliche stuff. Apparently he told them, and this was his big moment. He's like, if you guys stand on business and win this game, I will tell He didn't even say Heupel's name. I said, I will tell the other coach that we stand on business. Like that was his big gotcha that he was trying to say to Josh Heupel. And it sounds like he was even like he didn't really want to do it afterwards, but his players were following him kind of to make sure that he did it. And his words, he said, I can look like a jackass nationally by saying it. So at least he is a little bit self-aware. Or I can look like a jackass.
He certainly did.
Or I could look like a jackass to my team for not saying it. And it's like there was a third choice. You could have just never entered into this bizarro agreement to begin with. But either way, I can respect the fact that he went with, I'm going to do what I told my team I would do. Like, even as corny and weird as it was, like, I do respect that from him. But also in the interview, he was just kind of like, I don't care what people think about me. I know people call me dorky and arrogant and all this stuff. And the only thing he cares about is the opinions in the locker room. But man, it's the most Drinkwitz thing ever. Like, it's his nerdy. Like, it was his one moment to try to like kind of stand up and puff his chest out, and that's and he didn't even like Heupel. I don't know fully heard it. Heupel said in the press conference the week after that he didn't hear it on the field, kind of insinuating that he heard it after the fact. You know how it is after the game. It's loud down there. You kind of got to get up. You see coaches, they kind of got to get up close to each other to even hear what each other's saying after one of those games, especially after Missouri blows out Tennessee. It's not Neyland Stadium, but 65,000 fans. It gets a little rowdy when you win a big game. He didn't even like go up to him and like eye to eye say it. He just kind of like drive by, almost like the Jim Mora thing. It's like, if you're gonna do it, at least like
do it.
Shake the guy's hand and do it. Like right in the eyes. Do it.
Be Steve Spurrier. Be that.
Yeah.
I'm. I mean, since he showed up at Missouri, I mean, in the only year they haven't sucked was this past year, and he's had this weird like attempted bravado.
Yes.
I mean, he's at like SEC media days. He's made weird statements like before they ever had this 11-win season that they just had. Like he was saying some weird stuff where you were just like, you coach at Missouri. Like, what are you doing?
Well, he was talking junk about the when all the Pruitt stuff came out on the Jim Run show.
Right. The 20 level 1 violations or whatever. And then he was at and now, he was doing that before he ever won anything at all. Now he finally had a good season. And he can't translate it over to be like, oh yeah, here's finally I can have real swagger. Even that, he makes it dorky.
Like when he's yelling at Tennessee's huddle in a game that Missouri basketball lost.
Man, I saw, I think it was a clip on Basilio's show last week. Well, he tweeted it too, I think, or I saw other people tweet it, and Basilio had said this, that someone inside Tennessee's basketball program had told Basilio that Drinkwitz, I forget what the exact exchange was. Did you see this?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you might have been caught up in what you had going on last week. But that Drinkwitz had from the sideline had said to Zakai Ziegler something like, "Oh, you turn the ball over like your quarterback," and then Zakai Ziegler said like, "Excuse if you're listening with kids, excuse it. Well, I'll edit the curse word here. It's a family show." He said, "Shut up, you fat A. I don't even know who you are," or something like that. And he just, I mean,
why not?
I 100% would guess that Zakai Ziegler has no idea who Drinkwitz is. And
I mean, he does not look like, I'm not even getting into coach's appearances or anything like that, but he doesn't look like a typical, I don't think he played college football. I'm not sure. So he doesn't, like Josh Heupel's not the best shape, right? Like we know that, but he's a tall dude that played in the NFL briefly, won a Heisman Trophy. Like he looks like an ex-athlete. Drinkwitz just looks like a kind of normal dude sitting over there. So maybe he did mistake him for a fan.
Let's see. There is no mention of a playing career on Drinkwitz's wiki page.
Yeah, I don't think he did. There's a few coaches that are like that. David Chudliffe was one. Mike
Yeah.
Leach was one. Alex Dolish, at USF is one as well. He's a student assistant.
But
as far as the talking trash thing to the huddle, Tennessee's huddle.
Oh yeah, because actually didn't Tom Hart mentioned it on the broadcast.
Yes.
He said that Eli Drinkwitz came over and said, "You guys aren't tough
to
our huddle."
Yeah, and again, Missouri lost that game. If you're going to be an opposing coach and talk a little trash, I have no issue with that. I like the pettiness. I'm all for it. I think that's what makes sports so compelling and great. A lot of the times, it's not just on floor stuff. Do it like Tony Vitello when he just pointed at the guy that got dunked on by Dalton Connect. He didn't have to say anything. He just pointed right at him, like that you just got dunked on, and you're going to be all over that highlight.
I did love that
too, way.
Like what you're referring to is during the Auburn game, Dalton Connect blew by Janai Broom and dunked right on him, and Vitello was on the sidelines and got caught on camera pointing at Janai Broom.
That
great.
I love.
Yeah, be cool about it.
Yes.
Like you can win and be cool about it. You can be Vitello. Like you can tell where the brashness of Vitello's baseball teams comes from because he's that way. But like, just you can be the trash talking dude, but not like this. Come on. Anyway, all right, that's a show. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, commented, listens to the show on YouTube or on the podcast platforms. Seriously, I always say it, but I always mean it too. We could not do it without you. You are the engine behind this show. You're the Sakai Ziegler driving this program. But seriously, we appreciate it a ton. Thanks again. Follow us everywhere. Subscribe to the YouTube. Hit the like button and the subscription and all that stuff. That's it. Thanks so much for watching, and we will talk to you next week.
See you guys later.